Good morning for the audience that has just joined us. I'm going to let us get started so that we don't lose too much time. Good morning to everyone. It's morning from where I am, but I know for some of you it's afternoon, so good afternoon also. My name is Mona Idrisu. I work for the Africa Center for Economic Transformation. I work here as the head for our Youth Employment and Skills Program. I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Thank you all for joining us. I will go through some house rules really quickly before I go into the opening remarks. So we have interpretation available. If you look down on your screen, the Zoom screen, you will see an interpretation icon. In there, you can select English or French. So for our Francophone partners, you can select to listen in French. And for the, I think that should, and if someone is speaking in French also, remember there's an interpretation icon there that you can use for English in case you haven't selected English. Okay, and when we get to the Q&A session, I will be reading out questions from our Q&A. So there's a chat option. So as we're going along, if you have questions during the presentation at any point in time, feel free to pop it into the Q&A. If you click on the chat option, you can pop in your question and we can get the conversation happening on the side as well and interact with each other. So the purpose of these webinars aren't just for us to learn from the presenter, but also to learn from each other. So feel free to get the conversation going. If we were all in the same room physically, we will have an opportunity to introduce ourselves and have some conversation, but with these online platforms it's not as easy. So please feel free to do so. You could also raise your hand if you have any questions during the Q&A, and I will try to call you in to ask your question. Okay. And for our panelists who have the option to mute and unmute themselves, please keep yourselves muted through the session unless you're speaking. And then you could please put on your mic and turn on your video if your bandwidth will allow. Okay, so let's get started. So as I was saying, my name is Mona Idrisu. I work for ACET, and ACET is the Secretariat for the Pan-African Coalition for Transformation. What the PACT, I mean, most of you are here because you're part of our PACT platform in your individual countries and on the regional level. The Pan-African Coalition for Transformation is our mechanism for knowledge exchange and policy engagement. The way we see PACT is that ideally, you know, when we do research, the PACT becomes a platform that we then translate that to be able to influence policy. So most of our, or all of our PACT members are all key stakeholders in some way or some form related to youth employment and skills, because we are all concerned about the same things, regardless of whether you're sitting in Rwanda or you're in Ghana or in Ethiopia. And I'm sure as we will learn from our panelists later today, the issues are similar. And so with the PACT, we're able to learn from each other. And it's in that spirit that we are putting together these series of webinars that we're calling the PACT Learning Series. So with these series of webinars, we will have a resource person come in to talk about practical examples from the continent that would be relevant to our PACT members. So with these learning series, you know, we all have the research, but we're hoping to be able to bring practical examples. Like today, we have the Rwanda TVET board. here to give us a presentation. Now, why TVET? For the past, I think, 4 or 5 years, ACET's work in youth employment and skills development has brought to light the importance of TVET. I mean, we're all here in some way or some form involved in TVET education. So it goes without saying how crucial TVET is to us, especially if we need to provide our nations and the continent with the skills that we need for transformation. We realize that we now have an oversupply of the type of labor that comes from our traditional education systems. And on the other hand, we have an undersupply of the type of skills that is coming out from TVET. So we are lacking the skills that is needed coming out of our TVET institutions. And this is where the jobs are. So it's about time that we're prioritizing TVET education across the continent, rather than the image of TVET where it is seen as a second option. Now, we get the question a lot, so how do we do TVET? How do we reform TVET? What's the way? And this is why we're focusing on TVET today. We'll be listening in on a presentation from Mr. Geoffrey, who works with the Rwanda TVET Board. The Rwanda TVET Board is the key organization responsible for delivering TVET education in Rwanda. Even though they're a relatively young organization, they have already started to do quite a lot of impressive work in Rwanda, and especially in incorporating what we term here as the fourth industrial revolution skills. So digitization, AI, all those future-facing skills that are required in our TVET, so that it's not just TVET that's still centered on skills that are from 5 decades ago, but we're modernizing TVET. And the Rwanda TVET Board has started to do quite some good work in there. So I'm going to pause here because Mr. Geoffrey will give us some more information on that. Mr. Geoffrey works for the Rwanda TVET Board as an advisor to the Director General of the Rwanda TVET Board. He has a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Rwanda, and he's currently working on completing his postgraduate degree. So Mr. Geoffrey, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Over to you for your presentation. So we'll take the presentation from Mr. Geoffrey for the next 30 minutes or so. Then we move on to remarks from our panelists. We will then move on to Q&A from the general public. So I'll pause here and over to you.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Maybe let me share my screen here. Then we'll be discussing while we see what we are talking about. I'm glad that you invited us to this session as a country, as the Rwanda TVET Board in particular. We're happy to learn from others. We actually do things our own way, but we like to learn from the rest of the world. And I think this is the right platform to learn from. So I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yes, if you could please put it in presentation mode.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is it visible now?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, but the other side of, maybe I can minimize it. Okay. So in Rwanda, we have the national vision. Everything that is done in the country, we are focusing, or we are referring to the national vision, whether education system, whether agriculture, whether everything, we have a national vision, we have the national targets that the country needs to achieve. So they are broken down into three parts. So we have one section, a target that we need to achieve by 2024, by 2035, and 2050. We have the national vision 2050 as a country that we need to achieve. But to achieve that vision, we have short-term strategic objectives and targets that we need to achieve towards the 2050. So as a country, we are aiming at achieving, increasing our GDP. Sorry, can you hear me? Hello? Maybe all of them are muted, but I don't know.
Mr. Geoffrey, yes.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, so by 2024, as a country, we need to be among the middle income countries where the GDP per capita is $1,382 USD. And we are aiming at having 1.5 million new off-farm jobs. With this target, we know our role as TVET because we lead to the national target of employability of its citizens through imparting them with necessary skills that is needed on the labor market. Then by 2035, we are aiming at being a high-income country with a GDP per capita of over 4,000 USD, and by 2050, we are aiming at having over 12,000 USD. You can see our key TVET targets by 2024, where we are aiming at having 60% of our students. By the way, in Rwanda, something that I didn't tell you, you see 9-year basic education. We have 9-year basic education, that's primary level, plus 3 years of secondary education, making them 9. So that means the ordinary level of secondary education. So we are aiming at having 60% of the ordinary level leavers to be joining TVET by 2024. And we have a target of at least having at least 426 TVET schools. But this, we have already achieved this because we are more than that. We have over 473. So we have already achieved this target. The aim of increasing TVET schools is to make it accessible by many people across the country, such that the child is able to access a TVET education wherever they are across the country. So that's why we're aiming at increasing the TVET schools across the country. Here we're aiming at having at least one TVET school per sector. A sector is an administrative unit here in Rwanda. So we're aiming at having at least every TVET school in every locality where there are people. So we're aiming at having 86% of TVET graduates employed within 6 months after graduation. So far we are on 75. So since we are giving technical skills that are needed on the labor market for employment, then we are training technicians not to be job seekers, but to be the job creators. So we have this target, and we transform our target based on we transform our TVET based on the targets that we have. We don't need to train people who will be the job seekers. So that's why we have this target, at least in the first 6 months after graduation, to have 86% of our graduates having jobs. So we are aiming also to have 100% of our schools to have the basic ICT facilities that we are working on. We also have a target of having 100% of our TVET trainers qualified, because as you said in introduction, our TVET system is actually new. It has not been here for so long. So there are not many people who are qualified to teach in TVET. So we are working for that, at least to have all our trainers in TVET to be qualified. So we're also aiming at 100% of our curricula to be aligned on the labor market. So not to have the curricula that are not responding to the labor market. So we are aligning all our curricula to the labor market. So this is the structure. Sorry. This is the structure of our education system. We are under the Ministry of Education. So the Ministry of Education has its affiliate institutions. There are very many institutions that you can see that are affiliated on the Ministry of Education. The first one is Rwanda Polytechnic, that's abbreviated as RP. This one is in charge of higher education in TVET. Higher education, which means the university in TVET. It's coordinating the integrated polytechnic regional colleges, abbreviated as IPRCs. So we have Higher Education Council, abbreviated as HEC. This is in charge of quality standards and accreditation for higher education. We have us, Rwanda TVET board. We coordinate basic TVET at national level. We have a qualification framework that I will talk about later. That is level 1 to 5. Then we have Rwanda Education Board. This is also another institution that is in charge of coordinating general education at lower level. We have University of Rwanda that is in charge of coordinating higher general education, just like the Rwanda Polytechnic does for TVET. Then we have NESA that is in charge of examination and accreditation. This is also in charge of quality assurance of this, the basic education level that is run by Rwanda TVET board and Rwanda Education Board. So at every level, we have a regulatory agency that is in charge of quality assurance. And the Higher Education Council does the same on Rwanda Polytechnic and the University of Rwanda. And then this NESA does the same to Rwanda TVET board and the REB. So this is the roadmap. This is the roadmap of how our TVET system started here. In 2008, that's where the first policy about TVET was developed. Then in 2009, we established an institution in charge of TVET for the first time. It was called Workforce Development Authority. It was in charge of coordinating every TVET related activity. Then in 2012, we developed a qualification framework that was called Rwanda TVET Qualification Framework. We initially had TVET, but there was no qualification framework like which level, if this student has joined the TVET school, so which level, from this level up to another level. So there was nothing like a qualification, just like it was in general education. So we developed the TVET qualification framework, where it was composed of different levels that we'll talk about. Then in 2015, we revised the national policy that was initially developed in 2008. So we revised it such that it is aligned to the real problems of the country. So we revised the policy that was initially developed in 2008. And then we also added two TVET qualification levels on the qualification framework that we had developed. I'll talk more about them. Then we harmonized the qualification framework. We brought the horizontal and vertical mobility across all qualification levels that we'll talk about later. In 2017, we introduced the competence-based curricula, where a student now doesn't study per se, just study every competence. So if we are training a student in tailoring, this student may not know all the tailoring skills. He may be good at making, for example, dresses, and is not good at trousers. So we developed competencies. So the curricula was reviewed to be competence-based. So we are aiming at developing the competence of the learners other than giving the materials. So in 2020, that's when Rwanda TVET board came into existence. So it came into existence just to coordinate the lower TVET in the country. Initially, I told you there was one WDA that was this was in charge of all TVET schools and institutions. But now when Rwanda TVET board came into existence, it specifically took the role of the lower TVET, and then Rwanda Polytechnic took the lead of the higher education TVET. So these are the key pillars. These are the key pillars of focus on our TVET development. We aim at access. That's where we develop the infrastructures that are leading to quality TVET. Then relevance of TVET programs. As I told you, we always review our TVET programs in relation to the job market or what the private sector needs, because we are training technicians that will be used by the private sector industries. So relevance of what we are training, what we are teaching with the labor market or the industries is our major focus. We also aim at quality improvement. We also aim at awareness, because this awareness, since TVET is not something that is that many people know, we are making awareness campaigns for the public to get to know what is taking place and the opportunities that are in TVET, such that the parents can send their kids to join TVET. We're also looking, since TVET is not that cheap, it needs practical skills training. So there's a need of equipment, a need of infrastructure. So this is always very hard for any country that is still developing to achieve this. So we are developing a TVET financing model such that this TVET sector is financed to access every equipment and all the material that are needed in the training. So in the access, in increasing the access, we've already done much. So we started with few schools in 2010. There were about 63 schools. Now there are 473, which means many people or many students are joining TVET. That means that access to technical skills is increasing. People are accessing technical know-how, and many are utilizing these skills to create their own jobs. So in this access to TVET, we are constructing more schools. To construct more schools, we have what we call the TVET wings. The TVET wings are the TVET sections that are constructed besides the general education schools. So where we have the general education schools, we construct a wing for TVET, such that these students who are taking the general education and they are in the ordinary level of education, they can access the technical skills from just nearby their school. So we are trying to construct more schools. So far we have 114 TVET wings that we want to construct in every sector that I told you. So our districts here have the sectors, their administrative units within our governance sector. So we identified the sector that have not yet got one of the TVET schools. So we have already identified 114 that we are dealing with to construct at least one TVET school there. And we are putting TVET wings where there are general education schools. We construct the technical part of it, technical school. Besides that, we have constructed more 6 schools with some hostels in collaboration with some of our development partners. They are helping us to expand the TVET education across the country through construction of hostels, classes, schools. As you can see, we have very many of them that we are dealing with. So we are also thinking about the TVET centers of excellence that we'll talk about later. So far, we have very many projects that we are working on with these TVET centers of excellence across the country. There are some that are already operational, but where we transform the existing schools to be modernized, to turn into centers of excellence. So regarding the relevance, we reviewed the curricula, as I told you, to align them to the needs of the society or the private sector. So we've created a vertical and horizontal mobility pathways. Our education, studying, for example, general education like University of Rwanda. So we've created these horizontal and vertical pathways where students can still join different universities, whether University of Rwanda or our IPRCs. So we've developed some of the books that show what we do to the public, so that it becomes easy for them to see our focus. So we are developing a new TVET policy or a strategy that includes now the new updates on the new programs that we are introducing. Regarding the quality improvement, we are providing modern training equipment to our schools. We provide the consumables. We are giving some trainings to our trainers. Those are the teachers in TVET. So we are doing as much as it requires to modernize our education system, specifically TVET, in relation to the technical advancement or digital transformation of the world. So we are focusing much on the digitization of our trainings, whereby through the experience of the COVID-19, where education or learning was a problem. So this became a stepping stone to modernize our teaching digitally. So that's why we are digitizing every training content, where we created the e-learning platforms. So our students now, wherever they are, to access to access the learning materials, our trainers to be trained how to use the digital devices. We are providing them with computers, even students. So we are doing everything it requires to digitize our learning. That's where we developed all these online platforms. And what we are focusing much on is distributing the ICT devices to our trainers and students. So regarding the awareness, we always, every year, we carry out a nationwide awareness campaign, just to make the public aware of what is taking place in TVET. Very many parents or some private companies or individuals, they initially didn't know about TVET, yet these industries were recruiting people from schools, and these students were lacking the skills they need. So this awareness is all about making these industries or private sector get involved in skills development. So they are the people who hire these students when they finish school. So it's a way of calling them to take part into skills development when students have not yet graduated. So this provided us with some of the solutions, because the private sector is actively involved in curriculum development. They are actually involved in industrial attachments, or they are actually involved in industrial-based training, where our students go to those industries for practical training. So they are fully engaged. They are fully engaged in skills development. They have known that they are part of the process. They need to take part in education, and they are giving their support. So we've done a lot in terms of sensitization of the public about what is taking place in TVET and what the public needs to know about TVET and their role. So we've made various campaigns, and we've made various media talk shows. So about the TVET financing, TVET education is quite very expensive when you see what it requires, for example, starting from infrastructure and equipment. So it's always hard for the government itself to finance this TVET education fully. So we thought of TVET financing that will act as a side income to co-finance the TVET education. So this is a project that we are having. It is also we need to develop more such that helps in financing the TVET education. So it has its various mechanisms that it's not yet operational, but the project is under development to co-finance the TVET education to reach our objective. So these are the TVET pathways, as I told you. On the left-hand side, we have the general education program, where they start from primary, ordinary level, A level, up to the PhD. On the other side, we have the TVET that corresponds with this, where we start with level 1 up to level 7 and 8 and 9. So from the other side, you see where we have level 1. Here we are focusing on people who didn't finish their primary level. There are dropouts that didn't manage to finish their primary education. So you find that in most cases, if this person didn't finish primary level, is considered as someone who didn't go to school and is left there as someone who didn't even bother to join primary. And yet these people are very many. We normally experience the dropouts throughout the education system. So as a country, we didn't need this one to happen because these people need some basic skills that can make them fit into the job market or employ themselves. So these people are provided with the basic trainings, technical skills that allow them to join the labor market or to work for themselves, to create some simple employment. So this is what it is all about. Level 1. It's offered to those people who dropped out from their primary. These people are given these skills and they are awarded with this certificate 1 called the TVET certificate, vocational education training. This level 2 are those who dropped from the early secondary, for example, senior 1 or 2, or who didn't sit for ordinary level, that is senior 3. So you can see these who dropped from, who didn't finish their ordinary level, they are also given some basic trainings, technical trainings that can help them to join the labor market, or if they still need to continue with their studies, they can even go to level 3, but after sitting for the national exam. So this is a level 2. They are given certificate level 2. So let's say the level 3 are these people from who sat for ordinary level in the general education, who have the ordinary level certificate. These people are the ones who are admitted to offer TVET certificate level 3. So these are the ones that I was talking about, the 9-year basic education, because they have their primary and more 3 years of the secondary education. Once they finish that one, they can choose to continue to A level in the general education or branch to TVET to offer technical skills training through level 3. We continue up to level 4 and 5. Now, these days, the level 3, 4, and 5 of TVET education is a 3-year cycle. Initially, students were having, were taking one level. For example, a student could take level 3 and the branches to goes out for employment, comes back for level 4. So by now, we made it a cycle of 3 years such that a student gets out with a full package of the needed content that allows them to work. So after level 5, that is senior 6 of the technical education, they join the TVET diploma, then TVET advanced diploma up to the masters of technology. So this is the cycle of the educational system in Rwanda. So here, all these it's not mandatory that you need to finish this cycle of education just like it is in general education. Some can branch, can go to the workplace and work, then go back later for further education. So we also have the short courses and the workplace learning that are cut across all these levels that we have. So
Geoffrey, sorry to interrupt, just to say 5 minutes left on the clock for your presentation, please.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
So this is the workplace learning that I was talking about. Maybe I'll pass through. So we have the dual training, we have the industrial-based training. Here, we have someone from the company who acts as a trainer, where we send our kids there, and then it becomes our instructor to teach them. We have what we call the rapid response training, where people are trained just for the cause. If we have an investor, for example, in technology, and we don't have people to work from that company, we train these people to work there. That is rapid response. So these are the top skills of the future. Artificial intelligence, you are aware of this. I don't need to talk much about it, but this is our focus, artificial intelligence, because in technology, in this technology development, as TVET, we don't train people to lag behind. We need to train them with the current technology. This is what we need. So the TVET Centers of Excellence we talked about, the idea came just out of this survey that was done, the inspection that was done, where our schools were categorized as the excellent, good, and moderate. So we found that many of our schools are not falling into the excellent categorization. So we needed to improve the quality of our school. So that's where the idea of centers of excellence came in. I have talked about. So our TVET Center of Excellence, it's a school of excellence, on the other hand, that wish to be having this, some of these characteristics, that will be having modern infrastructure, that will have modern equipment and consumables, responsive curriculum, qualified trainers, transition mechanism from school to work, business incubation centers, the production unit services, the career guidance, research, and adequate accommodation facilities. All these in one school are the ones that make the quality of education very high. So what we did, we considered, this is the map of our country. We considered at least every district. Rwanda has 30 districts. So we are having this, to have at least one center of excellence in every country, such that at least if we talk of a qualified agriculturist, we don't look anywhere. We know that this person can be got from this school. So these are the model schools that we wish to be exemplary to others. So we focused on all the areas of the country, at least one. And the basis for choosing this was to focus on the district potentialities. What does that district have? If they are good at farming, then we set an agriculture center of excellence there. They are good at, for example, plumbing, we set a center of excellence after realizing the potentialities of every district. These are some of the designs of infrastructure you see of the center of excellence that we have developed. I want to go much into this. So far, we have some of the existing infrastructures that are working. We have this in the TVET school. This is working at our center of excellence now that is working. It is dealing in codification or software development. This is where our students now learn to develop some softwares, and most of the software that we are using are developed by these students from the school. We are also having other schools that are in charge of that are doing agriculture. So we need to have these schools transformed more so that they produce the quality skilled personnel to serve the nation, so that we get the quality of it. We have very many other projects that are in the pipeline. These are the projects that we already have to establish more centers of excellence. These are in the Kigali city, but even other areas across the country. So these are the proposed steps for establishment. And so far, we are already somewhere, but because of the time, maybe I can stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Geoffrey. I know that I have learned a lot from this presentation, and this is exactly why we wanted to hear from the Rwanda TVET board, because even from the little that I know of, hearing about your work, I think now going through this presentation, it's even more remarkable the work that you're doing on the ground. And I think it's a very good model for other countries on the continent in looking at the holistic approach. I particularly liked the fact that when you showed the 5 pillars, you're really taking this from a very holistic approach, including the key area of financing, which I know is a struggle for a number of TVET institutions and TVET heads that we have on the continent. So thank you very much. Again, if we were all in a room, we could give you a round of applause. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you. All right, so now I'm going to move to our panelists, who are also in their various countries. So they're all PACT members, but in their various countries are keenly involved in the implementation of TVET. Again, because this event is for us to learn from each other's work. So I would first like to invite Mr. Kuman, who is a technical advisor to the Ministry of Technical Education and Vocational Training in Côte d'Ivoire. Mr. Kuman, welcome. You're muted. Sorry, you're on mute.
Donc, je disais merci beaucoup, Mona. Alors,
right,
ce que M. Geoffrey vient de nous montrer montre qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui sont faites sur le continent. Et c'est une très bonne chose de partager un peu cette expérience. Je sais qu'après avoir fait plusieurs réunions dans le cadre de l'UNESCO, dans le cadre d'un certain nombre d'organismes, tous les pays sont en train de chercher à développer le FTP. Mais il y a beaucoup de freins. Et ce que M. Geoffroy vient de nous montrer montre qu'on peut y arriver. Et je lui dis merci pour ça. Et merci vraiment, chapeau à ce travail immense qui est en train d'être fait. Alors, bon, peut-être que j'ai parlé un peu de ce que nous avons fait aussi en Côte d'Ivoire. Il est arrivé un moment, comme l'a dit Geoffrey, on a vu que nos produits n'étaient pas encore appréciés du secteur privé. Et il y a eu vraiment un diagnostic qui a été fait. Et ensemble, on a mis en place une réforme qui avait un certain nombre d'axes, comme il a dit, accès, qualité, financement, implication du secteur privé et la refonte des programmes. C'était un des points forts de leur réforme, si vous avez bien vu, l'adaptation des programmes aux besoins de l'économie. Donc, à ce niveau-là, nous nous sommes approchés du secteur privé et nous avons signé une convention parce que on ne forme pas on forme pour le secteur privé, on forme pour l'économie. Donc, vous ne pouvez pas rester dans vos bureaux et puis faire des programmes sans ceux qui vont utiliser vos produits. Donc, aujourd'hui, nous avons un partenariat avec le secteur privé où nous travaillons ensemble. On a essayé de structurer l'économie en branches professionnelles pour que ces branches-là qui sont des parties de l'économie sortent les besoins en formation. Donc, vraiment, c'est l'axe central de ce qui est fait en Côte d'Ivoire. Et aujourd'hui, nous sommes en train de nous atteler à mettre vraiment ce dispositif en place. Comment faire pour que les besoins qui sont exprimés par le secteur privé, par les besoins de l'économie, puissent être transformés en actes de formation. Donc aujourd'hui, vraiment, c'est ce travail-là que nous faisons. Et nous avons mis un conseil national des branches professionnelles en place Nous avons mis aussi des commissions professionnelles qui sont liées à ces branches professionnelles-là pour traduire vraiment ces besoins en actes de formation. Et comme l'a dit Geoffroy tout à l'heure, on est en train de créer un centre de développement et de gestion des curricula. Il le faut forcément. Nous n'avons pas encore ce cadre national de certification qu'ils ont mis en place, mais il faut ce centre-là pour commencer à développer des programmes, pour commencer à mettre en fait l'architecture et la capacité de réviser les programmes au fur et à mesure. Et ces structures que nous mettons en place, nous le faisons avec le secteur privé. Aujourd'hui, quand un programme doit être touché, c'est avec le secteur privé que nous le faisons. Donc, il n'y aura pas la nécessité, je pense que ça va plus pousser le secteur privé à avoir confiance aux produits que nous faisons. Et on aura vraiment, on va adresser mieux les questions que le secteur privé et l'économie se posent. Donc, globalement, en ce qui concerne les programmes, voilà ce qui est en train d'être fait. J'ai vu les écoles du Rwanda et si vous regardez bien comment ces écoles-là sont faites, si vous êtes un enfant et on vous dit d'aller fréquenter, aller faire des formations dans ces écoles, vous allez sauter au plafond et courir pour y aller. Mais quand vous regardez un peu dans nos pays, hein, les écoles sont délabrées, le matériel est obsolète et ça ne donne pas envie aux enfants d'arriver. Quand vous prenez, ils ont des objectifs très concrets. 60% des enfants doivent aller à l'UFTP. Alors, donc, il faut disposer l'UFTP à recevoir ces enfants-là. Et c'est ce que nous cherchons à faire. Monsieur le ministre qui est arrivé, il a commencé à réhabiliter vraiment en profondeur ces écoles-là. Donc, il faut que les écoles soient belles, bien équipées et qui attirent les enfants. Parce que quand l'enfant est content d'arriver à l'école et qu'il y a une bonne formation, il y a des enseignants engagés, il y a des programmes qui sont bien faits, vraiment ces enfants-là n'hésitent pas à venir. Et ils sortent, il faut que vraiment le secteur privé aussi puisse les accueillir ou bien ils sortent avec des compétences qui puissent leur permettre de s'insérer dans les niches d'emploi et puis produire vraiment des choses pour notre économie. Donc aujourd'hui, en termes de programme, nous avons attaqué ça avec le secteur privé. En termes d'infrastructure et d'équipement, avec les partenaires, nous sommes en train de réhabiliter vraiment l'existant, de construire de nouvelles écoles. Il y a actuellement 28 établissements qui sont en cours de construction avec plusieurs partenaires. Et l'objectif vraiment, c'est d'atteindre, de pouvoir, aujourd'hui, nous avons à peu près 5% des élèves du secondaire qui sont à l'ETFP, mais 5% pour une économie qui veut avancer. Si on veut changer la structure de nos économies en structure industrielle, on parle de la 4e révolution. 5% des enfants qui sont dans les filières industrielles, techniques, ce n'est pas possible d'y arriver. Donc, il faut développer vraiment l'enseignement technique et c'est ce que l'État a commencé à faire. L'État met d'énormes moyens, même si des fois, nous qui sommes acteurs, on trouve que c'est insuffisant en fonction de ce qui se passe. L'État a commencé quand même à mettre d'énormes moyens. Donc, nous sommes en train de construire des écoles et ce serait bien que Geoffroy nous partage un peu son document parce qu'ils sont en train de faire des choses par district. Et chaque pays a des districts avec des régions. Nous sommes en train de chercher à mettre dans une région et un centre d'excellence et des centres satellites pour faire vraiment, pour toucher vraiment et ceux qui sont au niveau des capitales et ceux qui sont dans les localités, dans les villages, pour que l'enseignement, la formation professionnelle puisse être touchée là-bas, que ce soit dans le domaine de l'agriculture, dans le domaine halieutique, où on fait du poisson, on fait des ignames, comme chez nous ici, vous connaissez, on fait des ignames, on fait de la banane. Il faudrait que l'enseignement technique puisse aller les trouver, comme il a dit, le stade 1, ou ceux qui ne sont pas là à l'école. Il faut toucher tout cela pour améliorer la production de ces personnes qui sont dans ces localités-là. Donc aujourd'hui, vraiment, on est en train de chercher à régionaliser l'enseignement technique, vraiment couvrir le territoire pour que chaque Ivoirien, partout où il est, puisse avoir une offre de formation en fonction de son besoin. Ce n'est pas les mêmes offres mais il faut adapter l'offre de formation par rapport aux besoins économiques de la région et que nos centres soient des acteurs de développement dans chaque région. Donc, c'est pas moi le présentateur, hein. Bon, je vous partage un peu, je vais pas aller, je vais pas monopoliser la parole, je sais que nous sommes nombreux. Il y a ces choses-là qui sont en train de se faire et je pense que ce serait bon qu'on continue à échanger sur ces choses-là pour que chacun des pays soit un peu ce qu'il est en train de faire et que nous partageons cette expérience-là. Ici, nous sommes en train de revoir cette année. On va écrire la politique nationale. On avait une ancienne politique qui arrivait à son terme. On a fait une mise en œuvre qui arrivait à son terme. On va réécrire la politique nationale d'ici 2030. Donc, c'est bon de capitaliser un peu ce que les autres pays ont fait, où ils ont eu des difficultés. C'est bon de les savoir, ne pas tomber dans les mêmes erreurs. Et c'est en cela que vraiment je vous remercie. Je remercie le centre pour créer vraiment cette plateforme pour que on développe l'Afrique, quoi. Voilà. Donc, on continue la discussion. Je vais réagir après. Je vous dis merci.
Thank you very much too. Thank you for sharing.
Easily accessible, because one of the key findings from our recently published 6-country study is the fact that for TVET, it is easily an avenue for us to create jobs for usually the disadvantaged groups. So in the rural areas, for example, you know, the disadvantaged young people that do not have easy access to some of the urban jobs that we have available in our big cities. So I like that point, and it's good to hear what's happening in Côte d'Ivoire. Another point about, yes, this is exactly what the PACT is seeking to do. As Côte d'Ivoire is embarking on reviewing their national policy, which Rwanda has completed doing. This becomes a learning opportunity for our members in Côte d'Ivoire to be able to connect with Rwanda, to learn from the process that Rwanda used in their policy, their national TVET policy. So now I'm going to turn to Madam Gifty Mensah, who is working with the Ghana TVET service. And I'm going to move away and change our direction to the area of career guidance, because I think this is a key point in the sense that, as we were saying, TVET is seen as a second option by many people across the continent. And I think one of the key ways that we can change that is right at the basic level, at the primary school level, providing adequate guidance and counseling at that point, where we introduce young people to careers available in TVET. So I'm going to bring on Madam Gifty. Can you hear me?
I hear you, I'm here.
Okay, great. I think you have a few devices connected, so you might have an echo. If you could take out, exit from the other devices or move away slightly, please. Okay, great. So Madam Gifty, if you could let us know a bit more about what's happening in the TVET service in Ghana, particularly around career guidance.
All right, thank you very much. With Ghana TVET service, with the inception of the Ghana TVET service, we all know that the technical and vocational schools were under various ministries. So they all came together under one umbrella to form the Ghana TVET service. So like my brother from Rwanda said, we also started something vibrant, and we also have our curriculum and everything that helps the students to also pursue their courses. So what we did last year when I assumed office is to call on the institutional counselors, those who are in the schools, in our various institutions, 248 institutions, to go to the basic school, that is the JHS schools, to engage with the students and parents on various courses that we have in our schools, and also give them career orientation as to choose which areas of careers they want to pursue at the TVET secondary schools. So that is exactly what we did. And in our secondary schools, we have our core subject area, that is English, Maths, Social Studies, Entrepreneurship, and ICT, and then Science. So they do that core subject in addition to their elective areas. So you do this core subject as the grammar schools do, and then you also select your elective area, and then you pursue the course. And with the guidance and counseling, what we have done so far is to make sure that we have 2 counselors in the schools. We have the counselor who does career and academic counseling, and the other counselor doing psychosocial counseling. So that is exactly what we do, so that we help the students to be able to develop their career as they are in school. Then we also work with informal and private sector. If you look at the TVET sector and private sector, we have about 1,000 schools, more than 1,000 schools, even in Accra here. I'm talking about Accra. If you add other regions, there will be more than that. Then we have the informal sector, where we also train the youth on the various careers under the master crafts persons. So we extend the counseling services to the informal sector and the private sector as well. But it was like we copied the guidelines of guidance and counseling from Ghana Education Service, because TVET itself, when it started, they didn't actually have a counseling unit. So we copied, we had their guidelines, and we are hoping that we get a policy, a guidance and counseling policy for Ghana TVET service, so that we can have a structured program in the schools. Then we also can have training for our counselors in various schools. We have training, especially in career. And I think we are fortunate to have USC that trained about 12 of our counselors, and this year we are going to train them on career counseling, that is career guidance and counseling, to be specific. And they are supporting us with career centers, so that students, adjoining schools can access the schools that have the career centers there. And we are also trying to set up guidance and counseling offices in all the schools, so that they also cater for the psychosocial aspects of counseling for the students. So far, this is what we are doing. And in my unit now, we are planning to also develop, we have named it Up to Par, because for us, most of our learning are in the workshops. So we see to it that the workshops are safe for the students to learn their courses and learn their trades. Then we also talk about the students being safe during the out segments, when they are going for attachment and internship. We make sure that the students are safe. So we also have training for the master crafts persons, and then we do monitoring and visit the students while they are out segments, while they are on out segments. So we are planning to do all that. Then we also plan to have a manual, a career guidance and counseling manual for the counselors in the schools, so that they will look through the manual and be able to give the guidance and counseling delivery in the schools. So our manual has been named My Career Journey. So we are seeking for support to launch our manual, and then we print it out. If we get the technical support, we get a very good manual that we can send to the schools, so that the counselors can use in the schools, and then they will also use it for the students. Then we also have one other program that we want to launch, that is Fit for Purpose. We're also designing a career resource pack that the student can look through the pack and see that if this is the subject I'm learning, this is the job area I'm going to end up in. Then with the Fit for Purpose, we would like to get the student to be fit for which purpose they've chosen their career. And then we also have mindset and character education. So these are some of the things we want to come up with as Ghana TVET Service Guidance and Counseling Unit. So these are some of the things we are planning to have. But since it's a new setup, we are hoping to get NGOs and other supporters. And we are also talking to the Ministry of Education to give us the technical and financial support so that we can roll on all these plans that we have for Ghana TVET Service Guidance and Counseling. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Madam Gifty. And I think that it's inspiring hearing what you're trying to do and the plans you have in place for your office. And I think that this, again, is a call to all our partners listening in also on connecting with Madam Gifty around the issues of career guidance, particularly in TVET. We were supposed to have another panelist from Ethiopia who is having technical issues joining. He also works with the Ethiopia Technical University, and the integration project is TRIP. So hopefully another time he can join us. But I wanted to highlight because they've been doing a number of work in terms of standardizing skills in East Africa, particularly TVET skills, and dealing with the issue of transferability, so that, for example, if you're trained in country A, your skills are still transferable to country B in East Africa. So I think that's quite inspiring in the work that they're doing. Okay, so now I'm going to go to our Q&A. We've received a few questions so far. We have one, and I think this is to Mr. Geoffrey, our speaker, our presenter from earlier on. Mr. Geoffrey, we have a question from Marie. Marie wants to know if you could share a bit more about the process of matching skills required to what TVET students are taught. So how is this done and achieved, and how often it's reviewed? Earlier in your presentation, you made a point about making the effort of matching the skills that is being taught to the skills that's required out there in the labor market. Marie would like to know how you're going about this and how often you're reviewing this process. Mr. Geoffrey.
Thank you. Marie wants to know how far we've gone with matching our programs. So far, when our curriculum is developed, there are certain instances where we can review it depending on what the labor market needs, but under normal circumstances, we review our curriculum after 3 years. So after 3 years, we assess. But there are new skills or new opportunities that emerge. For example, technology. For example, these new technologies that are developing. We find that under normal circumstances, in our normal curriculum, we didn't have this captured. And there are new technologies that are emerging globally or worldwide. So we need to review what we've been teaching because the economy is transforming. For example, let me talk about, for example, in automobile. Automobile, we've been training the mechanics, and they were used to these kind of vehicles that were produced, for example, in 1999, somewhere, some years back. But now there are new models, the hybrid. So if we produce these kids and we send them to the labor market, they won't find something to do because the technology of the cars that are now being produced are far advanced. So there are instances that we need to review depending on what is required on the labor market. So that's how we do. We consult the industry. So what are the relevant skills as we talk? We say the students you're sending are now have this kind of skills that were needed some 30 or 10 years back, but now the new skills that are needed on the labor market require this. So we review depending on the instances. So on the other sectors that are not rapidly changing, we review after 3 years to assess if we are still in line with what is required on the labor market. I don't know if I've answered that.
Okay, yes, I think that it does, especially on how you are accessing or assessing the labor market needs. So there's a follow-up question on that, whether you have a specific office unit or agency in charge of doing that. Or is this under the TVET board?
Yeah, it's in our TVET board, we have the curriculum development department that deals with that. So they are ever in contact with the private sector and the industry to assess the new skills that are needed.
Okay. Yeah. All right, great, thank you. I will read out one last question before I go to our audience with their hands up. So we have one from Michael, who is asking how long it took to convert your curricula to CBT and how the implementation is going currently. So this is also for Mr. Geoffrey.
Yeah, thank you. Our curricula are developed responding to the CBT. So we have CBT, CBA, that is competence-based curricula or training and assessment. So all our curricula that are developed are already in conformity with the CBT, CBA. We don't develop them today, and then on the next time we align them to the CBT, CBA. They are already developed, focusing on the CBT, CBA. And what we do, we make periodic assessment to see if these curricula are being taught the way they are designed. So we make periodic assessments through our school to see if they are teaching respecting the CBT, CBA. I don't know if I'm trying to answer the question in the right way.
All right. Thank you. We have Festus, you have your hand up. Do you have a question or has this been answered? I'm going to, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think my question has been addressed.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Great. I saw a few hands up, but now they're down. Perhaps the questions have already been answered. Okay, I'm going to read out some more questions from our Q&A. This goes to Madam Gifty. So Madam Gifty, we have a question that's asking whether you're working with the Ghana Education Service in using or adapting their counseling model approach and then modifying and replicating it for TVET.
Yes, and when I got office, we didn't actually have a counseling unit at the Ghana TVET Service, but there was a counseling unit at GES, that is Ghana Education Service. And they actually look at the psychosocial aspects of counseling for students in the second cycle institution. But for us, we depend more on career and then academic performance of the child because they take the academic part, the grammar aspect, that the 6 core subjects, and in addition, they do their career areas, that is their electives. So that is why I think I have to develop a framework, a policy that is rather geared towards career more than the psychosocial aspect. Though I do both academic and psychosocial, and then concentration more on the career because we don't want to come out with career mismatch. And that is why we give them the career orientation from the JHS before they even choose their subjects into the TVET secondary schools. Then when they get there, we also support them with their career development. When you go to the informal sector, we can't just pick people from outside and just give them trade without career orientation. So they too, we have to give them the career orientation to know the areas where they want to learn. Then we also support the career development till they are finished with their courses. Then those who go to outstations, we have to also follow up, get involved with the master craftsmen. They themselves also give them some orientation as to how they should handle the students. Then we go around to also monitor to know that they are. So these are some of the things we do in addition to the guidelines I copied from GES, Ghana Education Service. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Madam Gifty. Another question from Tahiru. Tahiru from Niger would like to know, I think I'll pass this on to Mr. Kuman. What procedures your country intends to use to shift to a more practice-based learning rather than the theory, viewing that the main challenge we face on the continent is that a lot of our teaching is more theoretical than practical. Do you have any insights from Côte d'Ivoire you can share with us?
Oui. Merci beaucoup pour la question. Alors, pour que les enfants puissent être plus pratiques, il suffit seulement de commencer dans la rénovation de nos établissements à mettre vraiment de l'équipement. Il faut équiper les établissements, il faut former les enseignants. Et c'est un peu ça. Et impliquer les professionnels du métier dans l'enseignement. C'est notre partenariat avec le secteur privé, c'est un peu ça. Un établissement où nous avons équipé l'établissement, on a formé les enseignants. Si la compétence n'était pas dedans, on amène un professionnel du métier qui travaille avec les enseignants à la formation. Et une fois que une unité de formation est passée, 2 unités, les enseignants s'approprient un peu cette compétence-là et continuent. Donc, en fait, c'est impliquer fortement le secteur privé dans la formation et dans l'évaluation. Donc, aujourd'hui, comme je disais, nous sommes ensemble de l'identification du besoin en formation jusqu'à la certification des compétences. Ça coûte cher puisque quand un professionnel arrive, il faut pouvoir le prendre en compte, tout ça. Mais le partenariat fait qu'on minimise un peu ce coût-là. Il y a l'apport du secteur privé dans cette réforme-là, c'est de participer. Et une fois que l'enfant est bien formé, il pratique, il a les notions de base. Quand il arrive là-bas, le secteur privé n'a pas besoin de le reformer, de dépenser de l'argent pour le qualifier. Le rôle du secteur privé, c'est d'avoir des gens qualifiés pour travailler, produire. Donc, c'est un peu ça que nous cherchons à faire en amont. Donc, il faut équiper nos établissements, il faut renforcer les compétences de nos enseignants et impliquer le secteur privé dans les formations. Nous avons aussi ce programme de l'école La Nouvelle, la deuxième chance, qui dit qu'il faut pouvoir donner des compétences à ceux qui n'ont pas pu continuer, mais qui ont des capacités manuelles qui peuvent apporter beaucoup de choses. Donc, il y a des formations de courte durée, des modules de formation de courte durée que nous faisons aux gens qui sont en activité. Et au fur et à mesure, ils ont un certificat, ils ont un deuxième certificat, ils ont un troisième certificat. Et après, s'ils pensent qu'ils ont eu tous les certificats qu'on demande, ils vont postuler pour faire de la VAE et puis avoir un diplôme qui sanctionne tout ça. Mais ce qui est mis en avant, c'est la capacité du jeune à exercer un métier avec les compétences qu'il faut. Donc, vraiment, c'est un peu ce que nous faisons. Maintenant que j'ai répondu à cette question, est-ce que je peux poser une question à Geoffroy? Voilà. Alors, il a eu des chiffres vraiment qui
Sure, go on.
Oui. 60% des élèves doivent aller à l'FTP. Ils ont 426 écoles de FTP et ils veulent que 86% des diplômés soient employés 6 mois après l'obtention de leur diplôme. Alors, Je voulais savoir, aujourd'hui, il y a combien de pourcents de ces élèves-là qui sont à l'UFTP au Rwanda? Parce qu'il y a le général, il y a l'UFTP, il y a combien d'enfants qui sont à l'UFTP pour qu'ils projettent avoir les 60%? Quel est le taux d'insertion aujourd'hui, 6 mois après l'obtention du diplôme? Parce que 6 mois après l'obtention du diplôme, ça voudrait dire que vraiment l'activité économique est capable d'absorber beaucoup de diplômés. Donc, 6 mois, c'est bon, mais nous-mêmes, nous faisons un taux d'insertion, nous calculons le taux d'insertion 9 mois après l'obtention du diplôme, on n'arrive même pas à atteindre 30%, 40%, parce que le secteur privé a d'énormes difficultés à employer les jeunes. Il n'y a pas beaucoup de, il n'est pas assez dense, donc je ne sais pas quel est le cas du Rwanda. Et puis maintenant, quelle est la part du budget de l'UFTP dans le budget du secteur éducation-formation? Quand on prend l'enseignement supérieur, l'éducation nationale, l'enseignement général et l'UFTP, quelle est la part de ce budget de l'UFTP-là dans le budget du secteur éducation-formation? C'est des éléments qui vont nous permettre de nous positionner, parce que s'ils sont arrivés là, c'est que vraiment il y a eu beaucoup de financement de l'UFTP. Donc vraiment, c'est des éléments qui sont importants pour nous. Voilà, merci.
Okay, thank you. The question from Mr. Kuman is asking the number of students in TVET. So, unfortunately, given the number of them transitioning to jobs after the graduate and also around the budget of the very important question, especially secondary education, for example. What does that look like in Rwanda? Hello, Mr. Geoffrey.
Hello.
Yeah.
So the connection was not that right. May you repeat the question?
Okay, so he was, Mr. Kuma was asking around what are the numbers looking like in Rwanda when we look at TVET students in Rwanda, especially compared to general education students. And also similarly, when we look at the budget allocation, what is that for TVET in Rwanda compared to that of general education?
Okay, thank you. Regarding the number of students, of course, in general education, there are many compared to TVET. That's why we make all those campaigns, because people are not yet on the level of understanding the best that is in TVET, because they had a misunderstanding. For example, they didn't know initially TVET was meant, people knew that TVET was meant for the failed ones, only the failures who are unable to join unable to join the higher education could join TVET. So that mentality is still with some people. That's why we don't see even very many people joining TVET. Yet the vision of the country now is on TVET. So we need this campaign for people to understand. That's why we carry out the campaigns. So the number of students in TVET compared to that of general education, actually TVET is low. The number is still very low compared to general education. And concerning the budget, sorry? Concerning the budget, since the TVET is actually the focus of the country. So the government is doing all it requires to finance TVET education. But because, as I told you, the TVET is very expensive, and if the government finances, it cannot, we are not on the level of accessing everything, every facility that we need to train these students. So that's why in collaboration with the development partners, they're also intervening to help, to support. So TVET, as we talk now, is on the right track. So the budget is increasing progressively, but the vision of the country on TVET is not increasing budget there. Increased budget there, but targeting for the budget to reduce in some future years when TVET is refinancing itself. But presently, the budget, everything, the government is doing all it requires to finance TVET. So the budget in TVET is very high, and the government is looking for more options to increase it even more, because we are not yet on the level that we need to be.
Great, thank you. The keywords I picked up there was around prioritization. So it's clear that for Rwanda, TVET is a priority, and they're directing as much resource as they can and making that clear. And I also like the point around refinancing itself, TVET eventually refinancing itself. And it'll be interesting, perhaps in another session, to hear around the models that can be used for a TVET system that eventually refinances itself. So I'm going to ask two more speakers, and unfortunately we have to wrap up. I know the discussion is interesting, but we're on the clock right now. So I'm going to Apia Boateng. You have a question, you have your hand raised. So if you could ask.
Yeah, thank you, and so privileged to be part of this. I just want to say that the issue of TVET has been a problem for many African countries. You know, most of us, by our colonial inheritance, our schools are grammar-based schools, and in trying to change to bring in TVET has been a very big problem. I just want to find out what is being done if we can mainstream all grammar schools as exist today to have TVET part of it. So at least once you go to the school, it's not like you have to choose and go to TVET school here, because it's the stigma even over there. It's just like everybody that goes there is the one who couldn't pass well. But if we can have an opportunity to mainstream or to add TVET to every secondary school or grammar school, probably that could have also solved the problem, because in most of the developed countries, they have moved out of trying to have only TVET separately. TVET only exists separately, where maybe other people who could not get to a certain level can just brand there for a shorter course, maybe 1 year or 6 months to just polish up something for the job market. That is just my general, maybe it's just a contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Apia. And it's interesting that you mentioned, because this has actually come up in a number of conversations we've had, and we were actually looking to bring in eventually for one of these learning series, a case study from Uganda, where they are also experimenting and integrating TVET into mainstream education. So we will see how soon we can host that session, which would be interesting to learn more about. So I'll bring in Nike. Nike, if you can hear me, the floor is yours. You're muted, Nike.
Yeah, went up. I asked a question about Rwanda, if there was any, in fact, what were the language, what is or what are the languages of instruction? And if at all levels there was any restriction on age, that if you have to be of the appropriate age to go into any level of the TV.
Thank you. Maybe should I answer from here?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Concerning the language, we are using English as a medium of instruction on some levels, starting from level 3 up to the upper levels. Then level 1, we use Kinyarwanda. The reason being, these people dropped out of school when it is still very early. So they didn't have time to study in foreign languages. And all it requires here, we are not teaching them to proceed to university. We are imparting them with skills necessary for employment. So it's better to teach them in a language that they understand. So they are trained in a local language that is Kinyarwanda, such that they capture the basics, the basics of the skills they need to use into their work. So they are being taught in Kinyarwanda. Then the upper levels, the medium of instruction is English. So concerning the age, they are also on other levels. We don't have the age limit, but concerning level 1 and 2, these people, since they are the dropouts, we are training for them to acquire skills. We don't allow people below 16 to join. If we allow, they will drop out of primary and join because they are short courses and leading them to work. So we'll find more dropouts. So that's why we limited the number while putting the age of 16, such that if this kid is not yet 16, he's not allowed to join this level 1 or 2. So he or she will need to concentrate on their lessons from primary, then proceed to other levels. So other levels, we are not limiting people to enter a certain level on this age. But for these 2 levels, at least you must be 16 to join. I don't know if I've answered it very well.
Thanks a lot, Geoffrey. Okay, so now we've run out of time, actually, and unfortunately, I will have to bring this conversation to an end. I know there's still a few more questions in the Q&A, so if our panelists, if you would kindly type in answers to the questions that I missed out on due to time, that would be great. So we were supposed to have Mr. Evariste Gahima give us the closing remarks. Unfortunately, Evariste was not able to join us, but I should give him my big thanks because he did a lot of the groundwork. Evariste works for IPA, who is our partner in Rwanda. So Evariste did a lot of being able to bring us the Rwanda TVET board today. So a big thanks to Evariste. And also thank you to our partners. So our anchor institutions in 6 countries where we're running this PACT. Thank you all. You continue to bring us the audience to get the conversations going. So we're very grateful for your support in making this learning series happen. Now, I know that if I can boldly say all of us have certainly learned something from today's session. For me, I think it was very inspiring to see the transition from going from 60 schools to 473 schools, TVET schools in Rwanda. I think that's a very commendable achievement, especially in the space of, say, since 2010. That shows real commitment and tackling the issue of access. I also like the approach of integrating 4IR skills in TVET education, because I think this is the way forward if we are really going to prepare young people for the 4th industrial revolution. We need to be thinking 10 steps ahead rather than delivering skills that are only required today. We need to be also looking at future-proof skills. I also liked really the conversation around the involvement of private sector. And this, a point that was made in the chat by Madame Doris Kesse, who was mentioning around involving private sector, even in curriculum development and in our revision of curriculums. And even in, say, internships, also in having career fairs and all of that, because as Geoffrey mentioned, curriculum reviews can only be done in within certain periods. So in the case of Rwanda, every 3 years. But it's important that, and for the industry players here, you know that things change way faster than every 3 years. So it's only by involving the private sector closely in the delivery of education in general, and particularly in TVET, that we're going to ensure that what we're teaching our kids in the classroom is kept at par with industry demands. So I for one, also like that point. And perhaps in our next session, we will look for a practical example of that happening on the continent so that we can have them present to us and we could learn from them as well. So yes, thank you everyone. We know you're all busy in your day jobs, but you took out time to attend the session, and we hope it's been useful. We will keep having these PACT learning series. We're aiming to have at least one every quarter where we're able to learn from practical examples on the continent under our PACT platform. So thank you for your time today. Very much appreciated. And last but certainly not the least, my team, technical team, everyone here at ACET who has really worked hard to make this happen. Pearl, Kojo, Peter, everyone, thank you so much. All right, so have a lovely day, everyone. And please keep the conversation going on the WhatsApp platform, the PACT WhatsApp platform. Please, all right, have a lovely day and enjoy your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
facilitating this. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Mona.
All right. Bye.